Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hello again, everyone, and thanks for joining us here at KAKM for Thursday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting tonight's show. Up first is the fire danger here, showing still quite in a big area of extreme fire dangers over the north central interior Koyukuk Valley, back across the southeastern Brooks Range down into the Yukon Flats areas, and then down into the central interior eastern Tanana Valley areas, and also extreme fire danger over the Copper River Basin, northern Cook Inlet, Anchorage, Palmer, Madanuska Valley under some extreme fire danger, and areas of extreme fire danger back out to the west. There's been some improvement here up over the northwest with some rain that fell today, just a few hundredths of an inch falling across the Seward Peninsula back towards St. Lawrence Island, but so still some areas of high fire danger still exist there across the peninsula, and then areas of high fire danger extending back toward the Noatak Valley areas, but we've got high fire danger all the way down to the southwest coast here. Of course, the western Alaska Range, Madanuska, Susitna Valley, or mostly the Susitna Valley as well as the Kenai Peninsula, still in the high fire danger range there, but a little bit better there over the southeastern upper Yukon Valley areas, and of course the rain and clouds here, no fire danger threats there over the southeast coast. And looking at the forecast for tonight, extreme fire danger in the forecast here for the southeastern Brooks Range. This is due to southwest winds of 25 miles per hour and humidity's down to about 20%. Then that's until midnight tonight for, again, the southeastern Brooks Range, the Yukon Flats and surrounding uplands, as well as the northern Koyukuk Valley areas. And then the yellow areas here, that's dense smoke advisories out for the central interior north of Nenana, and then for the middle Tanana Valley there, the greater Fairbanks area, those again dense smoke advisories for visibilities reduced to a mile or less in smoke, and in some cases down to a quarter mile like they had at Tanana earlier today. But Fairbanks was down to about a mile and a half. That came up this afternoon. It's all improved here all the way back to McGrath from what they saw earlier today. But these advisories are out for dense smoke for tonight, tomorrow, into tomorrow evening until midnight Friday night. Looking at the satellite imagery, you can see a lot of cloudiness here with a band of moisture lifting north-northwestward across the southeast coast there. And that brought a fair amount of rain. Heidelberg picking up about a half an inch of rain. Port Alexander over an inch of rain falling there in the last 24 hours with some pretty gusty winds as well, 15 to 25 miles an hour recorded at a net throughout the day today and into the afternoon hours. But a lot of clouds up along the North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, mostly cloudy skies back across the Kenai Peninsula and then over the Cook Inlet areas into the Susitna Valley. Then you can see the thunderstorms developed again here this afternoon over the western Alaska Range up into the central and eastern interior upper Tanana Valley areas down to about possibly some showers or isolated thunderstorms over the Wrangell Mountains as well, but mostly clear and a lot of smoke here through the interior, not showing up on the infrared imagery here, but quite a bit of smoke here in this area that appears to be clear, that extends from actually Bristol Bay northeastward up into the Tanana Valley and all the way up in toward the Mackenzie River Delta area. Also back to the west, you can see that system that dropped in to the northwest here, bringing the rain as much as 0.2 of an inch at Kivalina in the last 24 hours. Rain along the western Arctic coast, Barrow picking up about 0.15 of an inch in the same 24-hour period. And then a very narrow band of moisture, light rain or showers extending across the Seward Peninsula down along the southwest coast, currently moving southeastward and continuing to dissipate as it does. And then low pressure here just southeast of Kodiak Island, brought about 2/3 of an inch of rain to the state airport there as it came across, and then showers extending all the way down to the Alaska Peninsula here. And the pressure difference between that low here and the higher pressure out to the west, kicking the winds up pretty good this afternoon across the Alaska Peninsula. King Cove, False Pass reporting northwest winds gusting 35 to 40 miles per hour, but lighter winds off to the west there. It's a little brisk across eastern Aleutians today, but not nearly that strong. Had some low clouds and fog here with a high pressure covering the Pribilof Islands, extending all the way back to the west to Shimmy and Attu. And then this disturbance dropping southward here. When that passed Gamble, the winds swing around to the northwest, gusted up to about 35 miles an hour this afternoon, but have since dropped off. An area of rain extending, light rain from St. Lawrence Island northwestward there. In this area, cloudiness up along the western Arctic coast with some wetting rains in those areas, but lighter amounts over the Seward Peninsula areas. Then we had smoke here from, again, Togiak Bay, Bristol Bay areas up through the Kuskokwim Valley. From the Koyukuk Valley areas all the way up into northwest Canada there, and some of that to a lesser extent into the Copper River Basin. The southwest winds all funneling it northeastward there. And of course the central interior and the middle Tanana Valley under that dense smoke advisory through tomorrow night, or through tomorrow evening anyway. Otherwise, we had the thunderstorms here, as I mentioned, over the eastern interior, back along the Alaska Range with some scattered showers over the Copper River Basin, the Talkeetnas, and the Wrangell Mountain areas, and rain and showers here over much of the southeast coast. Again, with Heidelberg picking up over half an inch of rain, but rain tapering off now there for Kodiak Island. And then should be just mostly cloudy there tonight with the showers and thunderstorms. Again, along the Alaska Range in the eastern interior, areas of smoke again all through the central interior, all the way back down to the southwest coast, northward across the upper Yukon Valley areas. And again, those extreme fire danger warnings out due to those southwest winds gusting up to 25 miles per hour this evening, and then conditions improving toward midnight and after. Otherwise, we still have a trough up here along the North Gulf Coast, keeping the showers going over the scattered showers here. Prince William Sound, North Gulf Coast areas of rain and showers. The heaviest amounts look like it'll be now over the northern panhandle with just some scattered showers down to the south. Otherwise, a few scattered showers lingering here over the Alaska Peninsula and the eastern Aleutians. Still looking at some pretty brisk northwest winds, 15 to 30 miles an hour there for the western Alaska Peninsula over the eastern Aleutians, and some drizzle, rain, and fog with that trough as it drops southward into the Pribilof Islands. That's going to keep a chance of showers here along the southwest coast. Chance of showers also this evening, western Alaska Range back down toward the northeast Bristol Bay, Kilbrook Mountain areas, and then showers also possible there for the central Arctic coast, back southwest across the western North Slope areas, all the way down across the Noatak Valley to the Seward Peninsula areas. That trough sort of just stalls out in that area with a big push to the south and southeast and a weaker push off to the east and northeast. And for the forecast for tomorrow, again, low pressure here just west of approaching western Seward, or the western Seward Peninsula. Rain will spread to the western Seward Peninsula with this low coming up just west of Gamble. So rain from the Seward Peninsula, the Bering Strait, southwestward across St. Lawrence Island with that feature as it comes out of the Russian Far East there. Otherwise, a pattern much like today with areas of dense smoke here from the southwest interior, the Kuskokwim Valley, right up into the central interior areas, excuse me, with smoke into the upper Yukon there, and down possibly into the Copper River Basin, but southerly winds are going to pick up tomorrow afternoon along the Copper River, could kick up 25, maybe even gusts of 30 knots there, or 30, 35 miles an hour there along the Copper River, Gulkana, Glen Allen, and those areas. So that would help keep the smoke more to the north there on the Alaska Range and to the north, with the trough still bringing a chance of showers in the forecast there for the southeast coast with mostly cloudy skies, but could be dry here over the southern areas. A couple more bands of moisture off the coast there, low south of Kodiak Island, but just a risk of some showers there for Kodiak tomorrow afternoon. Chance of scattered showers here, Bristol Bay, the Alaska Peninsula, out to the eastern Aleutians, mostly on the upwind windward side of the mountains there, the landmass there, the peninsula, with clearing possible. Sandpoint, King Cove seeing a little bit better conditions in the way of flying weather. Otherwise, isolated thunderstorms, Kilbrook Mountains, chance of thunderstorms along the Kuskokwim, western Alaska Range, and again, same story, eastern interior to the upper Tanana Valley and 40 Mile Country. And high pressure continues to hold out over the Bering Sea into Saturday as well, kind of weakening, receding a little bit there. They'll allow a front to approach the western Aleutians, possibly with some small craft advisory southerly winds, the rain kind of holding off a little farther to the west there. Otherwise, we got high pressure up over the Bering Strait, so look for areas of low clouds and fog to increase from there up across the Chukchi Sea. Low clouds and fog possible there with the lighter winds now along the central and western Arctic coast all the way over to the east there. Low pressure over the eastern interior, really just again thunderstorms developing over the upper Tanana Valley, 40-mile country, back down along the western Alaska Range. Showers back to the west over the lower and mid-Yukon and Kuskokwim River valleys right out to the deltas. This slow sliding southeastward pushes rain into Kuskokwim Bay, possibly Bethel, southward along the Alaska Peninsula. Light rain, fog, and drizzle there, back over to the eastern Aleutian areas there with some scattered showers lingering up around up around St. Paul Island. Kodiak Island will be under the influence of this 1007 millibar low there south-southeast of Sitkinak, so it looks like periods of rain and fog with that feature. And we still have showers continuing here, scattered showers over south-central Alaska, mainly over the mountainous terrain, with areas of rain and showers along the North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, again back down into the southeast coastal areas. And temperatures down that way today, we're in the upper 50s to upper 60s, 67 at Juneau this afternoon, 61 down at Klawock with 62 at Annette. Otherwise, Sitka had 60, 66 at Yakutat, and over at Cordova, 61 degrees there, up to 62. Not much warmer than the coastal locations at Gulkana. 75 in Talkeetna this afternoon with a 70-degree reading at Kenai, up to 66 at Homer. Seward, clouds and a light south wind just held them down to 60 today, with lower 70s here over the eastern Tanana Valley and mid-70s there in the central Tanana. At Fairbanks, 76 degrees. Again, with a lot of smoke, just 70 over at Tanana. 75 at Fort Yukon this afternoon. Bettle's up to 76. Anatuvik, 73 degrees up along the Arctic coast, kind of a range there, 59 over at Dead Horse, just 35 at Barrow, but 10 degrees warmer over at Atasuk with 45 degrees, 41 at both Wainwright and Point Lay, 49 degrees at Kivalina this afternoon, while Kotzebue had 53. Mid to upper 40s across the Seward Peninsula with 74 degrees there at McGrath, and down to the south, Sparrowbond had 69. That same temperature also recorded at Bethel. 52 at Kipnook and 55 at Cape Newenham with a 48-degree reading at Macoriac. Same thing there at St. George with 48, 51 at St. Paul. The Alaska Peninsula mostly in the 50s. Two lower 60s there, Chignik up to 63, and King Cove also had 61, as did False Pass. 54 degrees in Unalaska, mid-40s out over the Aleutians with King Salmon up to 74. And looking at the lows for tonight, looks like 50s, lower to mid here across the southeast coast, as well as the south central areas, lower to mid 50s for overnight lows, and then in the 50s here through the Tanana Valley, upper Yukon Valley areas where it's upper 50s. Colder temperatures back along the western Arctic coast, dropping down to near freezing there at Barrow, Wainwright, and Point Lay, with 30s down into the northwest here and into the Bering Strait. At Tin City, low 35. Look for a low of about 41 at Nome, and then in the 40s here over the Yukon and Kuskokwim Delta areas, and about the same out over the Aleutians and the Bering Sea. Highs for tomorrow, 75 to 80 for the upper Yukon and portions of the central interior tomorrow, with 60s back down across the Kuskokwim Valley. Again, a lot of smoke and the increase in the shower activity kind of holding these temperatures down. Looks like 60s for the Copper River Basin, 50s along the North Gulf Coast, upper 50s to mid 60s for south central Alaska. And taking a look at flying weather, again, the thunderstorms developing right through this area along with the smoke. And the IFR here over the eastern and central Tanana Valley to the 40-mile country, that almost due entirely to smoke. Marginal VFR back to the southwest here all the way to the coastline, with IFR along the Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula due to those northwest winds there. Better conditions on the south side. IFR along eastern Kodiak Island, and some IFR up here over the northern Panhandle, but areas of VFR on down to the south. Marginal VFR for the eastern and western Arctic coast there, back across the Noatak Valley into Kotzebue Sound and the northern Seward Peninsula, and then just an enormous area of IFR here from St. Lawrence Island all the way down across the Bering Sea to the Aleutians. And passes Anatuvik VFR tomorrow, same forecast for Adigan. Both approaches open. Lake Clark and Merrill VFR, chance of midday to afternoon thunderstorms there. Same forecast for rainy VFR. Risk of a thunderstorm for windy as well. VFR conditions. Isabel, VFR. In Mentasta, looking VFR as well. Tanita staying open throughout the day tomorrow. Portage, marginal VFR with western entrance VFR. And then for Chilkoot and White, look for occasional IFR. That's in the forecast. And for the freezing levels, showing 2,000 feet here with that upper disturbance dropping southward down to the northern Seward Peninsula coastline there with some cooler air, still about 8,000 feet though, right across Nunivak Island. So that's with the coldest air aloft here back to the west and northwest part of the state. Otherwise, 8,000 to 10,000 feet across the rest of mainland Alaska and the Panhandle, as well as the Aleutians out here, about 8,000 to 10,000 feet as well. That 6,000 feet is misplaced. Looking at the icing threats, looking below about 14,000 feet down to the freezing level here. That next system coming across out of the Russian Far East there. So the Bering Strait areas, western Seward Peninsula, St. Lawrence Island, sees the greatest threat of some icing there. Got an area here in the Gulf of Alaska. That'll be lifting northward tomorrow night, and then on Saturday to the North Gulf Coast. Winds aloft here is that sharp trough digging down across the northwest part of the state with northwest winds 50 knots still across the eastern Aleutians and the Alaska Peninsula there, coming around to the south across the southern Panhandle. 9,000 foot winds showing southwest flow, 10 to 15 knots, possibly up to 20 knots over the northeast interior with west-southwest 10 to 15 on the Arctic coast. Northwest winds 15 to 25 knots here over the southeast Bering Sea, Alaska Peninsula, and eastern Aleutians. A big high, lighter, more variable winds out over the Aleutians and westerlies for the Bering Sea. Southeasterlies 10 to 20 knots for the Panhandle. And then northeasterlies up to 20 knots there for Kodiak Island, coming down to 3,000 feet. The trough up here in the west. Not a lot of wind with this. 10 to 15 knots, up to 20 knots possibly there over the upper Tanana Valley areas, upper Yukon Valley, with northwest 10 to 20 knots on the southwest coast. Kind of a burst of wind here with this feature as it comes across St. Lawrence Island, but that will be mostly to the south of the island there across the northern Bering Sea. That's where the turbulence will be from the southwest coast there, possibly St. Lawrence Island across the northern Bering Sea, and then some light to isolated moderate turbulence possible here. Copper River Basin as those south winds kick in tomorrow afternoon, and that same sort of pattern along the North Gulf Coast into northern Lynn Canal, and could be some light to isolated moderate chop over the southern Cook Inlet area back to Kamishak Bay. And after Stargazer, I'll be back with a look at the marine forecasts.
The evening star meets the king of the planets. Welcome to Stargazers. I'm Dean Regas, astronomer from the Cincinnati Observatory.
And I'm James Albury, director of the Kika Silva Pla Planetarium in Gainesville, Florida. Dean, I am so excited about next week.
Let me guess, the Venus-Jupiter conjunction?
Exactly. Most people get excited about eclipses or comets, and those are all great sky events, but I've always been fascinated by planetary alignments like this.
And with good reason. Because of the changing positions of the planets in our solar system, we often see a few of them passing close to each other in the sky. Ancient star watchers took these motions very seriously, because any motion they saw in the sky was interpreted as a message from the gods.
Superstitions aside, I just think they look pretty. Besides, when you see the planets get close like this, you can't help but let your mind wander about the amazing cosmic forces that drive the planets in their orbits.
You mean gravity?
Yep.
So, this is a good week to watch Venus and Jupiter get close to each other as June 30th approaches.
What are we talking about? Let's show you. Okay, we have our skies set up for just after sunset near the end of this week, Thursday, June 25th, facing west, where we'll see two bright lights just below the stars making up the head of Leo the Lion. Leo's stars resemble a backwards question mark.
The two bright lights you see are Jupiter and Venus. Jupiter is the one up and to the left, and Venus is the one down and to the right. Over the next few days, watch how Venus and Jupiter appear to trade places in the sky.
Here they are on the night of Thursday, June 25th, then the 26th, 27th, and 28th.
Man, look how close they are. But hey, what's going on over there near the moon?
Yep, for you Saturn lovers, we have a double scoochie on the night of Sunday, June 28th. The waxing gibbous moon will appear super close to the ring planet Saturn. This will happen among the stars of Scorpius the Scorpion.
Very impressive. Did you arrange that?
Yep, months of planning and lots of paperwork was involved.
Okay, back to the action in the western sky. Here's Venus and Jupiter on Sunday, June 28th. And this would be a great time to try to look at both planets with a telescope. If you look at Jupiter, you'll see its 4 largest moons, Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto. Just before sunset on June 28th, Europa will be on Jupiter's left, and Ganymede, Io, and Callisto will be on Jupiter's right.
Check out how close Ganymede and Io are. If you're viewing this in the Eastern time zone, you'll see Ganymede and Io get farther and farther apart as Jupiter sets.
However, if you're viewing this a few hours later in the Pacific time zone, you'll see Ganymede slowly disappearing behind the giant planet. Now, if you aim your telescope at Venus on the evening of Sunday, June 28th, our evening star will resemble a waxing crescent moon, just shy of being first quarter.
Venus, however, is on its way toward the morning sky, so not only will the lit portion we see get smaller and smaller, but Venus's apparent size will get larger and larger. When Galileo saw this, it gave him evidence showing that Venus indeed orbits the Sun.
Okay, let's continue to watch the planets as they wander across the sky. Here they are again on June 28th, 29th, and at their closest on June 30th.
Yay!
Don't get too excited, my friend. Remember the Horkheimer effect?
Yes. We used to have a saying at the Miami Space Transit Planetarium that the chance of cloud cover at the time you're observing is directly proportional to the coolness of the event you're trying to see. We affectionately called it the Horkheimer effect. It's kind of like Murphy's Law for stargazers. During the transit of Venus back in 2012, we had 300 people at my planetarium, and just as the transit started, it poured down rain.
Now that never happens to us in Cincinnati.
So keep your fingers crossed for clear skies.
And even if you do get clouded out on June 30th, you'll still have some excellent views of Venus and Jupiter in the days preceding and following.
It's all there for you to see if you keep looking up.
Welcome back. Well, this is the state of the sea ice here this afternoon, extending from the western Arctic coast out to the west. It's expected to expand and move southeastward 20 or more nautical miles by Monday as those winds become northerly on Saturday. And for the southeast coast here, southerly winds at about 20 knots, southeast 20 for the north coast, southeast 20 knots over the inside waters, but up to 30 knots for northern Lynn Canal with those seas up to 6 feet. And then for Saturday, a little lighter up that way, 20 knots from the south still, 10 knots from the south for Stevens Passage, northwest at 10, pretty light for Clarence Strait, and lighter southeasterly winds here out along the outer coastline down to about 15 knots with seas running 6 to 8 feet. And for the North Gulf Coast tomorrow, east winds at 20 knots, southwest 15 for Prince William Sound, light southwest breeze for northern Cook Inlet, easterly winds at 15 for the Barren Islands, Kamishak Bay area, as well as Shelikof Strait, lighter northeasterlies there on the east side of Kodiak Island. Those become light and variable on Saturday there along eastern Kodiak Island, northeast up to 15 for Shelikof Strait, southeast 20 knots for the North Gulf Coast, and then the western Gulf Coast, Barren Islands, Kamishak Bay, easterly winds up to 20 knots with 6 to 7 foot seas, northeast 10 to 15 for Cook Inlet. Bristol Bay, southwest 15, northwest 15 to 20, still staying a little breezy here across the Alaska Peninsula with northeast winds at 10, southwest to Sitkinak. Those become light and variable on Saturday. And still looking at 20-knot winds here for the Alaska Peninsula from the west-northwest, and southerlies 15 now for Bristol Bay. For the Aleutians, northwest winds 20 knots, some higher gusts here for the Fox Islands. And then light variable winds over the central Aleutian areas, or west central Aleutians, northwest 10 to 15 for the Adak and Atka area. And then that western zone, again with that front approaching west to Shimia, southerly winds picking up to 25 knots in the afternoon out that way for Saturday. Light variable winds continue here over the west central Aleutians. And small craft advisories, northwesterlies, 25 knots for the Fox Islands with seas running 6 to 10 feet. And for the southwest coast, northwesterlies, 15 to 20 knots through this area, southwest 20 for St. Lawrence Island. Small craft advisories for westerly winds up to 25 knots here for the northern Bering Sea, northwest at 20 for the Pribilofs. And then as that system drops southward, northwesterlies 25 knots there for St. Paul and St. George Island, northerlies 25, small craft advisories for the northern Bering Sea, lighter northeasterlies at about 15 there for St. Lawrence Island, and southeast at 10 for Kuskokwim Bay in the areas south of Nunivak Island. Up along the Arctic coast, east to northeast, 10 to 15 knots here along the eastern stretch of the coastline. On the central coast, not too bad. Southwesterlies at about 10 knots, a little stronger 15 knot southwest winds here for the western coast. And from Wales up to Cape Lisburne, northwesterlies 10 to 15 knots through this area here. And taking a look at the outlook for Saturday, very light winds from the west here for the central coast. Northerlies, just an onshore breeze there at about 10 knots for the eastern stretch of the coastline. And about the same thing out here, 10 to 15 knot northerlies for the west, turning west for the western Arctic coast, but only at about 10 knots. And for tonight, again, areas of dense smoke here for the central interior, north of Nana in the central or the middle Tanana Valley, the Fairbanks area. Look for visibilities to be reduced to a mile or less in smoke for those areas tonight, tomorrow, into tomorrow evening. But areas of smoke all the way up to the eastern Brooks Range there, possibly into the Copper River Basin. But scattered showers here along the North Gulf Coast, areas of rain now mostly over the northern Panhandle, scattered showers to the south, and some showers here along that trough to the west. And then for Friday, again, scattered showers and thunderstorms here along the Kuskokwim and Alaska Range area into the eastern interior upper Tanana Valley. And that same pattern again on Saturday with more rain for the Alaska Peninsula and Kodiak.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.